heaven. Truth shall spring forth out of the earth. If you read at the beginning of the Book of Mormon, the testimony of the prophet Joseph Smith, where he was called to come look at and eventually at some point take the book that was deposited in the earth, the ancient writings of the peoples from the tribes of Israel that lived in the ancient Americas. Truth shall spring forth out of the earth. That was one of the first verses in the Psalms. I'm like, well, if the Psalms are talking about it, it must be true. Truth shall spring forth out of the earth. Come on. You can't say that you just make this up. You can't just say that you mess this up. Now, Isaiah 29, verse 4. Isaiah 29, 4. Now, wilderness, I think Isaiah is just a hop, skip, and a jump over from the Psalms. Not very far. Isaiah 29, we're heading that way. And if it's what I think it is, it's more, it just gives me more proof. Isaiah 29, verse 4 says, let me make sure I got that verse right. I want to make sure I get things right and kosher on this. Yes, it's Isaiah 29, 4. So, here we go. And thou shalt be brought down, and shall speak out of the ground, and thy speech shall be low out of the dust, and thy voice shall be as of one that hath a familiar spirit out of the ground, and thy speech shall whisper out of the dust. Well, I can hear some of you probably, oh, it's familiar spirits? Come on, you're not supposed to be messing with that. No. He opened up the Book of Mormon out of the ground, and the Spirit of the Lord told him how to translate. Okay? So that should tell you something right here and there, how I feel. Now, we are going to continue with this. After Isaiah, Ezekiel 37, 19. Now this is where it's talking about the stick of Joseph and the stick of Judah. Shall be one in mine hand, okay? Now the missionaries use this verse. The stick of Judah, okay? The stick of Judah is in my lap. And if I can reach for it, we have somewhere I have a Book of Mormon. And that is the stick of Joseph. Okay? So there you go. Now you know. Now, we're getting down to the nitty gritty. We are now heading towards the New Testament. John 10, verse 16. This is where Jesus says, other sheep I have, which are not of this fold. Okay? Now, most Bible scholars and preachers and teachers will say, well, that just means the other sheep of the Gentiles. if they are the Gentiles, why did Jesus then, throughout the New Testament, call for the lost sheep of the house of Israel? Think about it. He knew that there was another civilization just waiting to deal with him. Okay? Now, our last one, and then we're going to call it quits for the day. This is from Revelation, chapter 14, verse 6. I saw another angel having the everlasting gospel. Y'all remember reading that in between the two investigations with the missionaries. And I'm thinking, wow. And I didn't think any minister at the time, in my persuasion, being Baptist, could even fathom or say what that was. Some might say, well, it's just something that's going on in the last days. Some might say, well, we don't know. So I think in the Bible we don't know, and won't know until the next life. But I think this is where the biggest part of Scripture and Revelation is. So here we go. We hope that you enjoyed listening to Scripture and Revelation. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and leave us a comment on Spreaker and Podcast Addict. We would love to hear from you. And saying goodbye until next week. God bless.